Hi, everybody. Nice to meet you. I hope you can hear me okay. I want to point out that as in the other sessions, there's a Q&A section, and feel free to type your questions as I talk. If there's enough time, I will answer them right away live, and if not, I will definitely answer them afterwards. The presentation I have with me addresses both or the various different types of audiences that we have here at the conference, including, students and researchers in academia, but also a couple of nuggets for people in industry with interesting data sets where they would appreciate analysis help or collaboration with university researchers. So let me start by introducing why I am talking about bridging social science and LMP research. And I want to start with the quote from Sam Altman, who most of you probably have heard about. He is the CEO of OpenAI. And in the podcast with Lex Fridman last year, he said the bias he's most concerned about is the bias of human feedback graders. And as many of you know, in the big advances of machine learning and other contexts, there really is or was the strong need of people labeling data of all sorts. For the social science application, this might be hate speech or video, images, or whatever. And without knowing that process on how this is done and how a human evaluates elements, it might be quite difficult to get that right. So that is one element where I think such a bridge is needed, because social sciences can help with this particular problem. The other reason I think that is the case, that we need a better bridge, is that for benchmarking, you can either label new data directly in the way that I just mentioned, or you can use existing data that have been collected in the past for benchmarking purposes. And one of those data sets that might be familiar to some of you is called folk tables. It has been provided as a Python package and includes data from the US Census Bureau collected in the context of the American Community Survey, and has really a lot of data on income, employment, health, transportation, and the like from the US. And these data that you see in that panel, that they allow you to, at least in the US context, get some sense of population benchmarks for these particular variables. Now, other data archives exist that allow for sorry, I'm trying to hide the control panels here so that it's not in my way and your way. Other data allow for this kind of benchmarking and adjustment of data that you might have collected otherwise. I brought two examples with me. One is GESIS in Germany that has about 7,000 studies from the social sciences that are available for this purpose. And in the US, there's ICPSR with more than 350,000 different data sets that have information to all kinds of topics, ranging from aging, education, criminal justice, substance abuse, and the like. Now, both of these work with structured data. What is less available are unstructured data. And in the spirit of this conference, making data science accessible for all, I want to present here something that makes data science possible, accessible, supported for all, but for unstructured data. So let me walk you through the motivation for that at NFDI, the business, economic, and related data research infrastructure as part of the German National Research Data Infrastructure Initiative. And then I'll explain the core of BERD and a call to action for you with functionalities that might be immediately useful for you. So the first one, the piece about the motivation, for us, primarily the motivation for this platform was initially to enhance the capabilities of social science researchers when they use open unstructured data and need data science tools, algorithms, or code to prepare data that they currently don't have in their toolkit and portfolio. What do I mean with that? So the standardized data that I was talking about before would be this middle column here, survey data collected in personal interview with households and the like. They're usually done at scale, often nationwide. Now is election season in the US, lots of surveys going on there. Previously, but also in parallel, we know there is a strong community of qualitative data collection going on in quantitative UX research or social science research. And, you know, even before standardized surveys became popular, such studies had huge impact. Here's one example from the labor market context with the qualitative survey that was done, or study that was done in Austria, capturing what happened after massive layoffs in Austria in one particular town, where researchers went into the town and observed everything that was going on, took notes, how fast are people walking, how many people they interact with, and things of that sort. But of course, small n, because it's just one study. Now, with the advent of sensors everywhere, in particular in our mobile devices that we carry with us, such rich qualitative data on interactions, text, spoken word, you know, images taken, could be captured from the smartphones directly, geopositions, the whole gambit of data. But the problem is, for many that do this, either in the research or in the commercial setting, that these data are almost too rich, and you need algorithms to help you with the post-processing of these data. Another way to look at this difference and what happened there is that, you know, initially or in the past, you would have low-dimensional measures, often collected with survey data or as part of experiments and the like. A lot of work went into preparing them, but then the analysis is pretty straightforward. So the data science task afterwards in the analytics side is pretty easy. With the new data sources, text, language, images, or digital trace data from IoT devices, the recording often happens automatically, but the post-processing, generating features out of these data, or doing the analysis is quite difficult and requires support from algorithms, or increasingly maybe support from large language models that help with code creation, feature generation, and the analysis themselves. Ideally, we would link these two data sources, because getting population representation right is often difficult if we just deal with text, images, languages, that digital trace data that are not captured through a proper sampling frame. BERD also has the goal to solve another problem that we see, is that now these new data sources exist. Let's think of telecommunication data or the smartphone data that I just mentioned. And in particular, market researchers have an abundance of those data, but they often don't have in-house enough time and data scientists to really get the analysis done right with the information that that is provided there, because they don't have enough time to test and try out different things there in production settings. One way to solve this problem that has been done in the past was to create platforms that match up researchers with businesses, and the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania is one example, and Chicago Booth is another example that has successfully worked. And you might know Kaggle as a platform that also tries to do that. Big companies like H&M in Europe have tried those platforms to get researchers connected with their data and solve a prediction problem. Here, for example, getting a better recommendation algorithm, or American Express in, you know, risk assessment for loan default payments and the like, right? Now, this matchup on Kaggle, you know, of course, has the disadvantage that there might be much less sort of an ecosystem of making these analyses reliable and transparent, and have a support system for researchers in place to use code used elsewhere, learn about the proper algorithms for a particular task. And in general, this is an environment where the data that gets uploaded is already structured or largely structured, and not necessarily has the ecosystem for pre-processing. So here's where BERD comes in as a platform to solve these problems. Remember what I said before, traditionally the model of empirical research is you have a structured standard data set, and then you do your empirical analysis, whether this is a causal model or a prediction, and then you have your progress in scientific discovery. In this new environment with unstructured data, we have a setting where AI and machine learning algorithms are needed to create structured data from the unstructured sources, and the methodological costs for that are high. For any researchers, whether this is within a company or outside, whether this is a student or an advanced researcher, there is a lot of upfront costs needed to know what are the right methods to use, in which context, how to map the proper algorithms to a particular data type, and so on. So that's what the research infrastructure that we built is trying to solve. In the machine learning context, if you think about it, the actual code for applying a machine learning algorithm, it's only really one part of the puzzle, right? There is a lot more around it. There's issues of data verification. There are decisions on processing the data pipeline and the flow, the feature extraction, getting the right service infrastructure, monitoring what happened, logging what happened, and so on, right? So all these different steps of the pipeline is ideally something that you can embed into an infrastructure. One first attempt on doing something like this was done in the context of OpenML. It still exists and supports a variety of tools. Here, the idea was the same. People have data that they link up to OpenML and say, I have a new data set that I want to share. Others that work on models to analyze the data share those, and conversation can happen ideally in a fully reproducible way and language agnostic. The extension of this is the BERD research infrastructure, where this work is not only done by researchers sort of on the fly, but in conjunction with infrastructure experts. Several libraries in Germany involved, in particular Hamburg and Mannheim, around this business and economic research question setup, and they help to combine data and algorithms readily available for researchers. So I've mentioned NFDI a couple of times, which is the larger infrastructure context in Germany. It consists out of 27 consortia that provide new research data infrastructure types for various disciplines, and business and economic is only one, that's us, but chemistry, biology, history, all of them have different setups available for researchers, and I encourage you to check out NFDI if that is of interest to you. The different consortia work together on creating new metadata and terminologies and developing standards for data provenance across these various different disciplines. They have a set of common core infrastructure elements. They have a lot of guidance on ethics, legal, and societal aspects. I will mention a couple of them later on. They offer training opportunities and this type of industry engagement that I mentioned earlier. BERD itself focuses, as I said, on the unstructured data in this particular use case of business, economic, and related data, with the goal to be as open as possible to help link structured and unstructured data, to promote best practices in machine learning, and have guidance on these methods on the platform, create the right metadata to make this reproducible and transparent, and manage with that the entire life cycle. Here's the address for BERD, bird-nfdi.de. And you see here the screenshot for the BERD Academy, and I want to point out there are various courses in the fall that are free for you to take. You can just sign up online. Some are in person in case Munich is of interest to you, in particular working with the telecommunication data, for example, that is coming up in the fall. So let's look at the call to action and things that are going on at the platform itself. One that I want to point out is our interactive virtual assistant, IVA, or EVA as we call it, which allows you to, assess, for example, if you plan on web scraping data, to see how does the particular data collection conform with the European data protection regulation. It's an interactive virtual assistant that helps you navigate this particular space. Similarly, it helps you to get the right language down for asking for consent, or other legal questions that you might have. These are 3 different versions of that virtual assistant, fine-tuned to these specific questions. Also, BERD offers for you now a training and a certification to be a safe researcher. A lot of data is still provided in secure enclaves, in particular if it is microdata that have sensitive information. And we developed a self-paced training with a certificate that you can go through in order to prepare yourself as being a researcher, or researcher, not just academic, but also industry researcher, to get access to these data sets. This was developed in close cooperation with large organizations, both in UK and other places in Europe, to make sure they all then accept the certification. More information you can see here under the Assured tab within the service and tool parts of the platform. In its beta version, but I do want to encourage you to try that out, is our big data directory, where you can find curated data collection and high quality open source data sets, as well as the BERD marketplace. And this is the matchmaking between organizations and researchers that I mentioned before, that is available to you if you have data, but not necessarily the people to analyze them, or if you are a researcher in lack of data and you're looking for interesting problems. This marketplace supports this connection between individuals that can work on the data to create value, and companies or other researchers that have data sets that need this kind of support, and provides an environment in which that can be done without violating privacy or data protection regulations. The benefits for the organizations is that they have a possibility to foster innovation and creativity and new long-term relationships and partners with academia, access a talent pool that they might otherwise not be able to access, and all of this embedded in an environment that sort of up to date on research standards and algorithms, methods that should be used, but also allows researchers that work on this, or interested individuals to learn and develop their skills while they're working on this problem or prior to working on the problem. So one thing that I didn't mention, a key feature of this data marketplace is also that those providing the data have at all times control over their data, who is analyzing the data, what is happening with the data. So there's a data stewardship module that allows full control, and that too is different than if you use data sharing platforms such as Kaggle or others that are happening. If you are interested in this, you can join our data marketplace website and log in directly, or stay connected via the newsletter, which is linked here on this QR code and the link that you see here. So this is it from my side for now, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have in the chat. So I'm going to switch over to our chat window here, and we'll be monitoring any questions that you might have. And otherwise, you find our information in the slide deck if you want to be in touch afterwards, here available via BERD. One quick announcement for those of you that are available on October 7 and are interested in going to the US, we will have a special workshop on October 7 at the University of Maryland, addressing this combination of survey and AI that I mentioned at the very beginning of the talk, making, you know, the interplay between the community of data collectors and those working on large language models interested in creating automated chatbots for interviewing purposes, auto-coding, open-ended questions, and the like. There will be an interesting conversation, and I'm happy to welcome you in that space if that particular aspect is of larger interest to you, or if you're US bound. So feel free to check out our website. The keyword for that would be Serve AI, and you will find with that keyword and the University of Maryland all the information that you need. Charles, thanks for your question. Where to download the slides for the presentation for today? I actually will need to ask the conference organizers if there's a link to the slides, but I'm happy to post a link to the slides on the BERD website. And if you send me an email, I'll send them also to you directly.